Ladies and gentlemen, if you are enjoying my videos, please click the like button. It is the only way the YouTube algorithm really notices me. I would be very grateful to you. I looked in the owl's eyes. Big mistake. True story gone wrong. Scary story, published by Scare Fiction. Chapter 1. The Menacing Whisper. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the vast expanse of the savannah. I adjusted my binoculars and peered through them, scanning the horizon for any signs of movement. As a biologist specializing in animal behavior, I was accustomed to spending long hours observing wildlife in their natural habitat. I am Alex, a biologist studying animal behavior in a remote savanna reserve. Hears a chilling whisper in the night while conducting research, but dismisses it as his imagination. But tonight felt different. Tonight, there was an unsettling energy in the air, a feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. I glanced at my watch and noted the time. It was well past midnight, and most sane individuals would be tucked away in their beds by now. But for me, the cover of darkness was the perfect opportunity to observe the nocturnal activities of the creatures that called this savanna home. I shifted my weight and adjusted the strap of my backpack, feeling the weight of my research equipment pressing against my shoulders. As I trained my binoculars on a distant group of wildebeests grazing in the moonlight, a sudden chill ran down my spine. It was as if a shadow had passed over me, sending shivers down my spine. Brushing off the sensation as a trick of the mind, I refocused my attention on the wildebeests. They seemed oblivious to my presence, their movements graceful and rhythmic as they moved across the grassland. But just as I was about to jot down some notes in my journal, I heard a faint whisper, barely audible above the rustle of the wind. My heart skipped a beat as I strained to listen, my senses on high alert. It was as if someone or something was speaking to me, a soft, insistent voice carried on the night breeze. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone sent a shiver down my spine. I glanced around, searching for the source of the sound, but there was nothing but darkness stretching out in all directions. I shook my head, chiding myself for letting my imagination run wild. It was probably just the wind playing tricks on me, or perhaps the stress of spending too many nights alone in the wilderness. But even as I tried to convince myself that it was nothing, a nagging sense of unease lingered in the pit of my stomach. I made a mental note to pack up my equipment and head back to camp as soon as possible. The last thing I needed was to become another cautionary tale of researchers lost in the wild. With a sigh, I reluctantly lowered my binoculars and began to gather up my belongings. But just as I was about to turn away, the whisper came again, louder this time, more insistent. It was as if whatever or whoever was out there wanted me to hear it, wanted me to listen. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the straps of my backpack, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to flee, to run back to the safety of camp and pretend that I had never heard anything. But another part, the part that drove me to become a biologist in the first place, urged me to stay, to confront whatever lurked in the darkness. Steeling myself, I took a deep breath and turned back towards the savannah, determination burning in my veins. Whatever was out there, I would face it head on. I was a biologist, damn it, and I refused to be scared off by a mere whisper in the night. With newfound resolve, I squared my shoulders and marched forward, my footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. As I ventured deeper into the savannah, the whisper grew louder, more insistent, guiding me towards an unknown destination. And as I followed its siren call, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn into something far more sinister than I could ever imagine. Little did I know, this would be only the beginning of a journey into the heart of darkness, a journey from which there would be no turning back. Chapter 2. The Cryptic Warning. The savannah stretched out before me, bathed in the soft glow of the rising sun. It was another day of research, another opportunity to unravel the mysteries of this vast and untamed wilderness. But as I set out into the field, a sense of unease gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. The events of the previous night weighed heavily on my mind, the memory of the whisper lingering like a shadow in the back of my thoughts. I tried to push it aside, to focus on the task at hand, but the feeling of being watched persisted, a constant presence at the edge of my awareness. As I made my way through the savannah, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that the very air around me crackled with an unnatural energy. The animals seemed skittish, their movements erratic and unpredictable, as if they were responding to some unseen force. I paused to observe a herd of zebras grazing in the distance, my binoculars trained on their graceful movements. But as I watched, a strange sight caught my eye, a lone zebra separated from the herd, its coat mottled with strange markings that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Frowning, I adjusted the focus of my binoculars, trying to get a better look. But before I could make sense of what I was seeing, the zebra vanished into thin air, as if swallowed up by the very earth itself. I blinked in disbelief, wondering if I had imagined the whole thing. But then I remembered the other strange occurrences I had witnessed in the savannah, the unexplained disappearances, the bizarre animal migrations, all of them pointing to something deeply unsettling lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic landscape. Shaking off my sense of foreboding, I continued on my journey, determined to uncover the truth behind these strange phenomena. But as the day wore on and the sun began to sink below the horizon, I found myself growing increasingly uneasy. It was then that I encountered him, a local guide named Kofi, his weathered face lined with age and wisdom. He greeted me with a knowing smile, as if he had been expecting me. "You are the biologist, yes," he said, his voice low and gravelly. I nodded, taken aback by his sudden appearance. "Yes, that's me. I'm here to study the wildlife in the savannah." Kofi's smile widened, but there was something in his eyes, something dark and knowing that sent a chill down my spine. "You would do well to be careful, my friend," he said, his voice tinged with a hint of warning. "The animals here are not what they seem. They are guardians of ancient secrets, protectors of a power far greater than any man can comprehend." I frowned, unsure of what to make of his cryptic words. "What do you mean?" I asked, my curiosity piqued despite myself. Kofi's gaze bored into mine, his eyes shining with a wisdom born of centuries of living in harmony with the land. "There are legends, stories passed down through generations," he said. "Stories of a time when the animals walked as gods among men, when the savannah was a place of magic and wonder." I listened intently as Kofi spoke, his words weaving a tale of ancient rituals and forgotten powers, of a world where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural were blurred beyond recognition. And as he spoke, I couldn't help but feel a creeping sense of dread worming its way into my heart. "But be warned, my friend," Kofi said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The power that resides in the savannah is not to be trifled with. It is a force beyond human understanding, a force that can consume those who dare to seek its secrets." I nodded, my mind reeling with the implications of Kofi's words. It was clear that there was more to this place than met the eye, more than I could ever hope to comprehend with my limited understanding of the world. As I bid Kofi farewell and continued on my journey, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was treading on dangerous ground, that the very air around me thrummed with an ancient power waiting to be unleashed. And as the sun dipped below the horizon and the darkness closed in around me, I knew that the true danger of the savannah lay not in its wild beasts or treacherous terrain, but in the secrets that lay hidden beneath its surface, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek them out. Chapter 3: The Owl's Gaze. The night air was thick with anticipation, As I ventured deeper into the heart of the savannah, my senses on high alert for any sign of the elusive, nocturnal creatures that called this place home. Armed with my trusty flashlight and a notebook, I moved silently through the darkness, my footsteps barely making a sound on the soft earth below. As I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the sensation of unseen eyes following my every move. It was as if the very air around me was alive with a primal energy, pulsating with the heartbeat of the wilderness. I paused to catch my breath, my gaze scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. And that's when I saw it, a pair of glowing eyes, shimmering like emeralds in the darkness, watching me from the branches of a nearby tree. My heart skipped a beat as I trained my flashlight on the source of the eyes, revealing the form of a large owl perched on a gnarled branch. Its feathers ruffled in the gentle breeze, and its eyes bore into mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. For a moment, we stood locked in a silent standoff, neither of us daring to make a move. But then, with a sudden flutter of wings, the owl took flight, disappearing into the night with a haunting screech that echoed in the stillness of the savannah. I shook my head, trying to shake off the sense of unease that had settled over me like a heavy cloak. It was just an owl, I told myself, nothing more than a curious creature exploring its territory. But try as I might, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about this particular owl, something that set it apart from the other creatures of the savannah. Its gaze had held a wisdom, a knowledge far beyond that of any ordinary bird. Pushing aside my apprehension, I turned my attention back to my research, determined not to let a mere owl distract me from my purpose. But as the night wore on and the hours stretched into eternity, I found myself unable to shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the owl's eyes were still upon me, watching and waiting. I tried to focus on the task at hand, jotting down notes in my journal and making sketches of the nocturnal animals that crossed my path. But with each passing moment, the feeling of unease grew stronger until it was all I could think about. Finally, unable to ignore it any longer, I decided to confront the owl head-on. With a sense of determination coursing through my veins, I set out into the darkness, following the sound of its haunting call. It wasn't long before I stumbled upon the owl once again, perched on a low-hanging branch, its eyes glittering in the moonlight. This time, however, there was something different about its demeanor. Something, almost. I approached cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest, unsure of what to expect. But to my surprise, the owl did not fly away as I drew near. Instead, it regarded me with a steady gaze, as if it had been expecting me all along. For a moment, we stood locked in a silent exchange, neither of us speaking a word. But then, with a sudden burst of movement, the owl spread its wings and took flight, disappearing into the night once more. I watched it go, a sense of awe and wonder washing over me. There was something about that owl, something mysterious and otherworldly, that captured my imagination in a way that I couldn't explain. And as I stood alone in the darkness, surrounded by the sights and sounds of the savannah, I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden behind those haunting eyes, and what mysteries they held waiting to be discovered. Chapter 4. Disturbing Dreams. The night air hung heavy with a sense of foreboding as I drifted into an uneasy sleep, my mind swirling with fragments of memories and half-formed thoughts. But as I sank deeper into the darkness, a sense of unease settled over me like a suffocating blanket, wrapping me in its cold embrace. At first, the dreams were nothing more than fleeting images, glimpses of the savannah bathed in the soft glow of the moon. But as the night wore on, they grew more vivid, more visceral, until they felt more real than reality itself. In my dreams, I found myself wandering through the endless expanse of the savannah, the grass rustling softly beneath my feet. But no matter which direction I turned, I could not escape the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following my every move. And then, without warning, the owl appeared, its form looming large against the night sky, its eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. It spoke to me in a language I could not understand, its voice a haunting echo that reverberated through the depths of my soul. I tried to run, to flee from the owl's gaze, but no matter how fast I ran, it was always there, just beyond my reach, its presence a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within me. And then, as if summoned by some unseen force, the other animals of the savannah appeared, their forms twisted and distorted, their eyes glowing with an unholy light. They circled around me, their movements fluid and graceful, like dancers in some macabre ballet. I tried to scream, to call out for help, but no sound escaped my lips, trapped as I was in the grip of the nightmare. I was alone in a world of shadows and whispers, with no hope of escape. But just as the darkness threatened to consume me, I felt a hand on my shoulder, a comforting presence in the midst of the chaos. I turned to see Kofi standing beside me, his face a mask of solemn determination. "Do not be afraid, my friend," he said, his voice a soothing balm against the turmoil raging within me. "The darkness cannot hurt you if you do not let it." With those words, Kofi reached out and touched my forehead, sending a surge of warmth coursing through my veins. And as his hand made contact, the darkness began to recede, the nightmare melting away like mist in the morning sun. I awoke with a start, my heart pounding in my chest, my body drenched in a cold sweat. For a moment, I lay there in the darkness, trying to catch my breath, trying to shake off the remnants of the dream that still lingered in the corners of my mind. But even as I tried to convince myself that it was nothing more than a trick of the mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to those dreams, something that I couldn't quite put into words. And as I lay there in the silence of the night, I couldn't help but wonder what other horrors awaited me in the darkness, what other secrets lay hidden beneath the surface of the savannah, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to seek them out. Chapter 5. The Enigmatic Guardian. The savannah stretched out before me, vast and endless, as I ventured deeper into its heart, my footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. The air crackled with anticipation, a sense of unease settling over me like a heavy shroud as I made my way through the darkness. It was then that I stumbled upon it, a hidden cave nestled amidst the towering rock formations, its entrance obscured by thick vines and tangled underbrush. At first glance, it seemed like any other cave, its walls dark and foreboding. But as I drew closer, I sensed a strange energy emanating from within, a feeling of power and ancient wisdom that sent a shiver down my spine. With trembling hands, I brushed aside the vines and stepped into the darkness, my flashlight cutting through the shadows like a knife. The air was thick with the scent of earth and decay, and I could hear the faint drip of water echoing in the depths of the cave. As I ventured further into the darkness, I noticed strange carvings adorning the walls, intricate patterns etched into the stone with a precision that spoke of a master craftsman. They depicted scenes of a bygone era, of a time when the animals of the savannah walked as gods among men, their powers revered and feared by all who dared to cross their path. But it was the central carving that caught my eye, a towering figure, its form half human, half animal, its eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. It was the guardian spirit of the savannah, a powerful being said to watch over the land and its inhabitants with a vigilance bordering on obsession. As I studied the carving, I felt a sense of unease wash over me, a feeling that I was being watched by unseen eyes. I tried to shake off the sensation, to focus on the task at hand, but the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing moment. And then, as if in response to my presence, the cave began to tremble, the very earth beneath my feet shaking with a violent intensity. I stumbled backwards, my heart pounding in my chest, as the walls of the cave seemed to close in around me, threatening to swallow me whole. With a sense of urgency born of desperation, I turned and fled, my footsteps echoing in the darkness as I raced towards the safety of the outside world. Behind me, I could hear the sound of crumbling stone, the cave collapsing in on itself with a deafening roar. I emerged into the night, gasping for breath, my body trembling with adrenaline. As I looked back at the cave, now nothing more than a pile of rubble and dust, I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden within its depths, what mysteries had been lost to the sands of time. But one thing was clear: the guardian spirit of the savannah was not to be trifled with, its power beyond comprehension, its wrath swift and merciless. And as I stood there in the darkness, I knew that my journey was far from over, that the true dangers of the savannah had yet to reveal themselves. Chapter 6. The Haunting Vision. The darkness of night enveloped me as I lay in my makeshift tent, my heart racing with anticipation and dread. Sleep eluded me, my mind plagued by visions of the guardian spirit that haunted my every waking moment. I tossed and turned, unable to escape the grasp of my own fear. And then, as if summoned by some unseen force, the vision came, a swirling mass of darkness and shadow, coalescing into a monstrous form that filled the tent with its oppressive presence. Its eyes burned with an otherworldly fire, its features twisted and contorted into a grotesque mockery of the animals of the savannah. I tried to scream, to call out for help, but no sound escaped my lips. I was paralyzed, trapped in the grip of the nightmare, unable to move or even breathe. The creature loomed over me, its breath hot and fetid against my skin, as it whispered words of darkness and despair into the depths of my soul. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the vision to end, but still it persisted, growing stronger with each passing moment. It spoke of ancient powers and forgotten rituals, of a time when the world was young and the animals ruled supreme. And as it spoke, I felt a chill run down my spine, a primal instinct warning me of the danger that lurked within. But try as I might, I could not escape the clutches of the vision, its grip tightening around me with each passing moment. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making, a prisoner of my own fear. And then, just as suddenly as it had come, the vision vanished, leaving me alone in the darkness, trembling and disoriented. I lay there for what felt like an eternity, trying to make sense of what had just happened, trying to convince myself that it was nothing more than a trick of the mind. But deep down, I knew the truth. The guardian spirit was real, its power undeniable, its wrath swift and merciless. And as I lay there in the darkness, I knew that I was not safe, that the creature's gaze was still upon me, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. With a sense of dread weighing heavy on my heart, I resolved to uncover the truth behind the guardian spirit, to face my fears head on and put an end to the nightmare once and for all. But as I drifted into an uneasy sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come, that the true horrors of the savannah had yet to reveal themselves. Chapter 7. Descent into Madness. The days blurred together into a haze of uncertainty as I wandered the savannah, my mind a swirling whirlpool of fear and confusion. The visions haunted me day and night, their spectral presence a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of perception. I tried to focus on my research, to lose myself in the intricacies of the natural world, but the animals seemed to sense my unease, their movements erratic and unpredictable, as if responding to some unseen force. I watched them with a growing sense of paranoia. Perhaps they were possessed by some malevolent spirit, I thought. Or perhaps they were part of some ancient ritual, their actions guided by forces beyond their control. But try as I might, I could not shake the feeling that there was something more to this place, something hidden beneath the surface of the savannah, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to seek it out. And as the days turned into weeks, my mental state deteriorated further, my grip on reality slipping with each passing moment. I became convinced that the animals were watching me, plotting against me with a cunning and malice that sent shivers down my spine. I began to see signs of their malevolence everywhere I looked, in the way the grass swayed in the breeze, in the way the clouds formed ominous shapes in the sky. I was consumed by paranoia, my thoughts consumed by fear and suspicion. But even as I descended further into madness, a part of me knew that the true danger lay not in the animals themselves, but in the dark forces that lurked behind them, manipulating them like puppets on a string. I resolved to uncover the truth, to confront the darkness head-on, and put an end to the nightmare once and for all. But as I delved deeper into the mysteries of the savannah, I realized that the true horror lay not in the answers I sought, but in the questions that remained unanswered. And as the darkness closed in around me, I knew that the battle for my sanity had only just begun, and that the true test of my courage lay not in overcoming my fear, but in facing it head-on, no matter the cost. Chapter 8. The Sinister Ritual. The sun beat down mercilessly as I trudged through the sweltering heat of the savannah, my mind consumed by thoughts of the darkness that lurked just beyond the horizon. I had stumbled upon something sinister, something that threatened to unravel the very fabric of reality itself, and I knew that I had to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As I made my way through the dense underbrush, I stumbled upon a clearing, its edges marked by ancient stone pillars and weathered carvings. At the center of the clearing stood a group of figures, their faces hidden beneath hooded robes, their voices raised in a chant that sent shivers down my spine. I watched from the shadows, my heart pounding in my chest, as the cultists performed their ritual, their movements fluid and precise, as if guided by some unseen force. And as I listened to their words, I felt a chill run down my spine, a primal instinct warning me of the danger that lurked within. For hours, I watched in silence as the ritual unfolded before me, each moment more horrifying than the last. The cultists spoke of ancient powers and forgotten rituals, of a time when the world was young and the animals ruled supreme. And as they spoke, I realized with a growing sense of dread that they worshipped the guardian spirit of the savannah, the very entity that had haunted my dreams for weeks. But it was not until they produced a sacrifice, a helpless animal, its eyes wide with terror, that I realized the true extent of their depravity. They intended to appease the guardian spirit with blood, to offer it tribute in exchange for its protection and favor. I knew then that I had to act, that I could not stand idly by while innocent lives were sacrificed in the name of some twisted ideology. With a sense of determination burning in my veins, I stepped out of the shadows and confronted the cultists head-on, my voice ringing out clear and strong in the stillness of the clearing. But my words fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the fervent chanting of the cultists as they continued their ritual unabated. I realized then that I was outnumbered, outmatched by forces beyond my control, and that if I wanted to stop them, I would have to do it alone. With a sense of resolve coursing through my veins, I lunged forward, knocking aside the nearest cultist and sending him sprawling to the ground. The others turned to face me, their eyes wide with fear and disbelief, as I fought tooth and nail to put an end to their madness, once and for all. But even as I struggled against them, I knew that the true battle lay not in the physical realm, but in the depths of my own soul. I had stumbled upon a dangerous secret, a truth that threatened to consume me whole. And I knew that if I wanted to survive, I would have to confront it head on, no matter the cost. And as the dust settled and the last of the cultists fled into the night, I stood alone in the clearing, my heart heavy with the weight of the knowledge I had uncovered. I had stumbled upon something sinister, something that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of reality itself, and I knew that my journey was far from over. Chapter 9. Confrontation with the Unknown. As the last of the cultists fled into the darkness, I stood alone in the clearing, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind reeling with the enormity of what I had just witnessed. The entity they worshipped, the guardian spirit of the savannah, loomed before me, its form shrouded in darkness, its eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. I knew then that I had stumbled upon something far beyond my understanding, something that threatened to consume me whole if I did not act quickly. With a sense of determination burning in my veins, I stepped forward, my eyes locked on the creature before me. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice ringing out clear and strong in the stillness of the clearing. "What do you want from me?" The guardian spirit regarded me with a gaze that seemed to pierce straight into my soul, its eyes burning with a primal intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. And then, with a voice like thunder, it spoke. "I am the guardian of this land, the protector of its secrets," it said, its words echoing in the depths of my mind. "And you, Alex, are a trespasser in my domain." I braced myself for an attack, my heart pounding in my chest, but to my surprise, the guardian spirit did not move. Instead, it regarded me with a sense of curiosity, as if I were some strange and exotic creature that had wandered into its path. "Why have you come here, Alex?" it asked, its voice tinged with a hint of amusement. "What do you seek in the depths of my domain?" I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. I had come here in search of answers, in search of the truth behind the strange occurrences that had plagued me for weeks. But now that I was face to face with the guardian spirit itself, I realized that the truth was far more complex than I had ever imagined. "I seek knowledge," I said finally, my voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. "I seek to understand the mysteries of this place, to uncover the truth behind the darkness that lurks within." The guardian spirit regarded me with a sense of amusement, as if my words were nothing more than a child's fanciful dreams. And then, with a sudden burst of movement, it lunged forward, its form shifting and contorting into a monstrous shape that filled the clearing with its oppressive presence. I stumbled backwards, my heart pounding in my chest, as the creature advanced upon me with a terrifying grace. I knew then that I was no match for its power, that if I wanted to survive, I would have to rely on more than just brute strength. With a sense of desperation coursing through my veins, I reached deep within myself, tapping into reserves of courage and determination that I never knew I possessed. And as the creature closed in, its eyes burning with a primal hunger, I knew that the true battle lay not in the physical realm, but in the depths of my own soul. With a cry of defiance, I launched myself forward, meeting the creature head-on with a strength born of desperation. And as our bodies collided, a blinding light filled the clearing, washing away the darkness and leaving me standing alone in the silence of the night. I looked around, disoriented and confused, as the last traces of the guardian spirit vanished into the darkness. And as I stood there in the clearing, my heart pounding in my chest, I knew that my journey was far from over, that the true dangers of the savannah had yet to reveal themselves. But one thing was clear: I had faced the unknown and emerged victorious, and as long as I had the strength and courage to continue, there was nothing that could stand in my way. Chapter 10. The Final Revelation. The savannah stretched out before me, bathed in the soft glow of the rising sun. As I stood on the edge of the clearing, my heart heavy with the weight of the knowledge I had uncovered. I had come here in search of answers, in search of the truth behind the strange occurrences that had plagued me for weeks. But now that I had found them, I realized that the truth was far more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. As I looked around, taking in the desolate beauty of the landscape, I knew that I was standing on the brink of a revelation that would change everything I thought I knew about the world and my place in it. And then, with a sudden burst of movement, the owl appeared before me, its form shimmering in the sunlight as it regarded me with a gaze that seemed to pierce straight into my soul. "You have come far, Alex," it said, its voice echoing in the stillness of the morning. "But there is still much you do not understand." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest as the owl continued to speak, its words filling me with a sense of dread and anticipation. "The guardian spirit you encountered, the entity you refer to as the owl, is but a fragment of a much larger whole," it said. "It is a manifestation of ancient forces that have existed since the dawn of time, forces that cannot be comprehended by mortal minds." I listened intently as the owl spoke, its words weaving a tale of darkness and despair, of a world where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural were blurred beyond recognition. And as it spoke, I realized with a growing sense of horror that I had stumbled upon something far more sinister than I had ever imagined. "Cultists, you encountered the worshippers of the guardian spirit. They sought to harness its power for their own selfish ends," the owl continued. "But in doing so, they unleashed forces that they could not hope to control, forces that threatened to consume everything in their path." I felt a chill run down my spine as the implications of the owl's words sank in. The cultists had sought to harness the power of the guardian spirit, to bend it to their will and use it for their own nefarious purposes. But in doing so, they had unleashed a darkness that threatened to consume everything in its path, including me. With a sense of determination burning in my veins, I knew that I had to put an end to the madness once and for all. I had to confront the darkness head-on, to face the guardian spirit and its minions in a final showdown that would determine the fate of the savannah and all who called it home. And as I stood there in the clearing, my heart pounding in my chest, I knew that my journey was far from over, that the true battle lay not in the physical realm, but in the depths of my own soul. But no matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice, I would not rest until the darkness was vanquished and the savannah was safe once more. Chapter 11. Escape from the Abyss. The savannah lay stretched out before me, a vast expanse of untamed wilderness, as I stood on the edge of the clearing, my heart heavy with the weight of the knowledge I had uncovered. I knew that the time had come to confront the darkness head-on, to put an end to the madness that threatened to consume me whole. With a sense of determination burning in my veins, I set off into the heart of the savannah, my footsteps echoing in the silence of the morning. The air crackled with anticipation, a sense of unease settling over me like a heavy shroud as I made my way through the dense underbrush. But even as I pushed forward, I could feel the darkness closing in around me, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare me in their icy grip. I knew that I was running out of time, that if I did not act quickly, I would be lost to the savannah forever. With a sense of urgency coursing through my veins, I pressed on, my senses on high alert for any sign of danger. And then, just as I began to lose hope, I stumbled upon a hidden path, a narrow trail winding its way through the tangled undergrowth. With a surge of adrenaline, I followed the path deeper into the heart of the savannah, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. I knew that the key to escaping the darkness lay somewhere along this path, and I was determined to find it. no matter the cost. But as I ventured deeper into the wilderness, I could feel the darkness closing in around me, its presence a palpable force that seemed to weigh me down with each passing moment. I knew that I was walking a fine line between life and death, between salvation and damnation, and that the choices I made in the moments ahead would determine my fate. With a sense of determination burning in my veins, I pressed on, my footsteps quickening with each passing moment. And then, just as I began to lose hope, I stumbled upon a hidden clearing, its edges marked by ancient stone pillars and weathered carvings. With a surge of adrenaline, I stepped into the clearing, my eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger. And then, just as I began to relax, I heard the sound of rustling leaves, the whisper of the wind, the faint echo of footsteps in the distance. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I turned to face the source of the sound, and what I saw sent a chill down my spine. The guardian spirit stood before me, its form shrouded in darkness, its eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. I knew then that I was facing the final showdown, that if I wanted to escape the savannah alive, I would have to confront the darkness head-on and emerge victorious. With a sense of determination burning in my veins, I braced myself for the battle ahead, knowing that my survival depended on it. Chapter 12. Into the Unknown. The sun hung low on the horizon as I emerged from the depths of the savannah, my body weary and my spirit battered but unbroken. I had faced the darkness head-on, confronted the malevolent entity that lurked within, and emerged victorious. But the scars of my ordeal ran deep, etched into the very fabric of my being. As I stepped out into the light of day, I felt a sense of relief wash over me, a feeling of freedom that I had not experienced in weeks. But even as I basked in the warmth of the sun, I knew that my journey was far from over, that the true battle lay not in the physical realm, but in the depths of my own soul. With a heavy heart, I set off down the winding path that led away from the savannah, my mind consumed by thoughts of the darkness that still lurked just beyond the horizon. I had faced horrors beyond imagining, confronted forces that defied comprehension, and emerged from the abyss forever changed by my ordeal. But even as I walked, a sense of unease settled over me like a heavy shroud, a feeling that I was being watched by unseen eyes, that the darkness was still lurking just out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And then, just as I began to lose hope, I heard the faint echo of wings in the distance, the soft hoot of an owl in the night. I froze in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest as the memories of my ordeal came rushing back with a force that threatened to overwhelm me. The owl's piercing gaze haunted my dreams, its presence a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within me. And as I stood there in the fading light of day, I knew that I would never truly be free of its influence. With a heavy heart, I continued on my journey, knowing that the scars of my ordeal would never truly heal, that the memories of the darkness would linger with me forever. But even as I walked, a sense of determination burned within me, a resolve to confront the unknown head-on and emerge victorious, no matter the cost. And as the sun dipped below the horizon and the darkness closed in around me, I knew that my journey was far from over, that the true battle lay not in the physical realm, but in the depths of my own soul. But no matter the challenges that lay ahead, no matter the trials I would face, I would not rest until I had conquered the darkness once and for all, and emerged from the abyss forever changed, but unbroken.